Captain John Anders guided his scout ship, the Peregrine, through the edge of human-explored space. His sensors beeped intermittently, a mundane soundtrack to the lonely stretches of void that filled his daily patrols. The blackness outside was punctuated by the brilliant pinpricks of distant stars, their light cold and distant. "Anything on the long-range scanners, Rix?" John called out to his first mate. "Quiet as usual, Captain," Rix replied, his eyes never leaving the screens. "Wait, hold on. I'm picking up something unusual. Seems to be a debris field. Could be a ship." John straightened in his chair. "Origin? Unknown. It doesn't match any known designs. Definitely not one of ours." John's interest piqued. Encounters like this were rare. "Set a course, Rix. Let's check it out." The Peregrine's engines hummed as the ship altered its trajectory, approaching the coordinates Rix had specified. As they drew closer, the outline of a shipwreck emerged against the backdrop of a barren planet. "It's a wreck, all right," John murmured, observing the twisted metal through the forward viewport. "Life signs?" Rix toggled the sensors, his brow furrowing. "There's one. Faint, but it's there. Prepare for a boarding operation. Let's see if there are any survivors." John rose from his seat, his heart rate accelerating with the prospect of action. He grabbed his gear and headed towards the airlock, Rix at his heels. The airlock hissed as it sealed, and John's boots clanked on the metallic floor of the alien vessel. The ship was dark, lit only by the beams from their flashlights slicing through the gloom. "Over here," Rix whispered, gesturing to a collapsed section of the corridor. They carefully made their way over debris until they came upon the source of the life sign, a blue-skinned alien girl. Her bright eyes flickered open, revealing irises like molten silver. She was strikingly beautiful, with features both delicate and distinct. "Please," she rasped in heavily accented English. "Help me." John knelt beside her, checking her for injuries. "I'm Captain John Anders, and this is my first mate, Rix. You're safe now. Can you move?" Her eyes widened with a mix of fear and relief. "I can try." With John's help, she slowly stood, though it was clear she was in pain. "Who are you?" Rix asked, suspicion lacing his tone. "My name is Serena," she answered, her voice gaining strength. Was a navigator. Our ship was attacked. I am the only one left." John studied her, trying to gauge her truthfulness. "What were you doing in this sector?" Serena's gaze met his, unwavering. "Seeking asylum. I have information, important information about my people and the war." "We need to get her back to the ship, assess her claims," John decided, making a command decision. He offered Serena his arm for support. "Thank you, Captain," she said, accepting his help. "I know I must earn your trust." As they made their way back to the Peregrine, John felt the weight of her dependence. She was an enigma, wrapped in the mystery of an uncharted star system. Whatever her secrets, they were now inexorably tied to the fate of his crew. Back aboard, John watched as Rix settled Serena into the infirmary. His mind was abuzz with possibilities. Her knowledge could change the course of the ongoing conflicts, or it could be a trap. Only time would reveal the true nature of this unexpected encounter. In the dim light of the Peregrine's infirmary, Captain John Anders watched as Dr. Lena Hughes administered care to their unexpected guest. The alien, Serena, lay on the examination table, her features etched with discomfort, yet colored with an undeniable grace. "Vitals are stable, John," Lena reported, her tone professional yet curious. "She's not like any species we've documented. Her physiology is complex, remarkably resilient." John nodded, his arms crossed as he observed Serena. Her skin had a luminescent quality, reflecting the soft lights above. "Can she be moved to a quarters? I don't want her in the infirmary longer than necessary." "Already ahead of you," Lena replied, gesturing to a medic who began preparing a mobility stretcher. "She's asked for you several times. Seems you made quite the impression, Captain." John grunted, unsure of how to feel about the alien's attention. He turned to leave, pausing as Serena's voice, soft yet clear, stopped him. "Captain Anders, may I speak with you?" He hesitated, then nodded to Lena and approached Serena's side. "You're in good hands, Serena. Speak freely." "Thank you for your kindness," she began, her voice gaining strength. "I understand my presence here might cause tension. I wish to offer my services to your crew. In return, I ask for protection until I can contact my people under safer circumstances." John regarded her warily. "What services can you offer?" "I am trained in navigation and diplomacy. I have knowledge of sectors uncharted by your maps, and I understand technology that may benefit you." Rix, who had entered quietly, added his skepticism. Sounds convenient. For all we know, she could be a spy, or worse. Serena's gaze met John's squarely, her expression earnest. I am no spy, Captain. I fled from a coup within my own ranks. Staying would have meant my demise. John chewed over her words, glancing back at Rix, whose doubt mirrored his own concerns. Yet something in Serena's demeanor suggested she was sincere. It was a gamble, but one that could potentially offer them an edge in their deep space ventures. All right, John finally said, the decision settling heavy in his chest. You'll work under close watch. Rix will oversee your integration with the crew. Any sign of double dealing, and this agreement ends. Your quarters will be secured at all times. Serena's relief was palpable. Thank you, Captain. I will not betray your trust. As they prepared to move her, John pulled Rix aside. Keep an eye on her. If her information is as valuable as she claims, it could change our standing in this quadrant. Rix nodded, a hint of reluctance in his eyes. I'll keep her in line, but I'm holding you to that promise. We're in deep enough as it is. With Serena relocated to a secure quarter under guard, John reviewed the ship's logs, pondering the implications of their new crew member. He knew the risks of harboring an alien fugitive, especially one from a species unknown to the human alliance. Yet, the potential rewards could be transformative, not just for the Peregrine, but for humanity's reach into the galaxy. It was a risk he had decided to take, and now, only time would tell the outcome. Captain John Anders sat in the dim glow of the Peregrine's bridge, reviewing the star charts that Serena had provided. They detailed sectors of space that no human had ever recorded, each filled with potential resources and unknown dangers. John found himself increasingly reliant on Serena's expertise, though he kept his reservations close. Course set for the Tauran sector, Captain, Rix announced from the navigation console. If Serena's right, we might just find the ore deposits she mentioned. John nodded, his gaze lingering on the star map. Keep scanning for any anomalies. We're not the only ones interested in new resources. As the ship hummed through hyperspace, a proximity alarm suddenly blared, ripping through the quiet tension of the bridge. Multiple signatures incoming, Lena called out from her station. They're fast and closing in. John's heart raced as he moved to his command seat. Battle stations. Rix, evasive maneuvers. The ship rocked violently as the first plasma blasts hit their shields. On the main screen, sleek alien fighters, matching Serena's species design, swarmed around the Peregrine, their intentions clear. Serena, to the bridge, John shouted into the comms. Moments later, Serena appeared, her face drawn with worry. Captain, these are my people. They must have tracked me. Can you talk to them? Get them to back off? John asked, dodging another volley of fire. I can try, she said, moving to the communication panel. Her fingers flew over the controls, sending out a hail in her language. A tense minute passed with no response, and then the main screen flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced alien commander. Serena, you are in violation of the Sovereign Edict. Surrender and return, or we will destroy your sanctuary. The commander's voice boomed through the bridge. Serena's stance hardened. I claim the right of sanctuary under the Intergalactic Accord. I am with Captain Anders of the Peregrine, a vessel of peace. Cease your fire. The commander sneered, then cut the transmission. The ship shook as a fresh barrage hit. Looks like negotiations have failed, Rix muttered, gripping the controls. John assessed the situation rapidly. Lena, keep our shields up as best you can. Rix, get us out of here. Any direction, just move. Rix pushed the Peregrine to its limits, weaving through the enemy formation. Serena stood beside John, her face pale but determined. I'm sorry, Captain. I didn't expect they would go this far to retrieve me. John glanced at her, then back to the chaos outside. We're in this together now. Let's focus on getting out alive. As Rix found a narrow gap in the enemy blockade, John rallied his crew. Prepare for hyperspace jump on my mark. The countdown felt agonizingly slow, but finally Rix punched the drive, and the Peregrine leaped into hyperspace, leaving the enemy fighters far behind, at least for the moment. Breathing heavily, John turned to Serena, his decision cemented by the battle they'd just survived. We need every bit of advantage your knowledge can give us. It's time you told us everything. No more secrets. Serena nodded, the weight of her past and the hope of her new allegiance mingling in her eyes. I'll tell you everything, Captain. We must prepare. They will not give up so easily. As the stars blurred into the streaks of hyperspace, John felt the isolation of deep space less acutely. They were a crew bound by necessity, but forged now by battle. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. In the dimly lit conference room aboard the Peregrine, Captain John Anders, alongside his senior crew, Rix, Lena, and now Serena, gathered around the holographic projector. The light cast eerie shadows across their faces as Serena prepared to divulge the secrets she had promised. John's voice broke the tense silence. "Serena, you need to be completely transparent with us. What you know could dictate our next moves, and our survival." Serena nodded solemnly, her hands slightly trembling as she activated the projector. A complex array of star systems and political territories materialized in mid-air, glowing softly. "I am not just a navigator," she began, her voice steady despite the obvious strain. "I am the daughter of General Varex, commander of the High Guard of my people. What you see here," she gestured to a cluster of strategically important systems, "are not just mining sectors but pivotal points in the upcoming phase of the war against your species." The revelation hung heavy in the air, and Rick shifted uncomfortably. "Your royalty?" "In a manner of speaking," Serena admitted, "but my status became a liability when my father opposed the ruling council's directive to escalate the war. A coup was imminent. My flight was to protect not just my life but crucial information." John leaned in, analyzing the map. "You're saying these sectors, they plan to annex them one by one," Serena interrupted. "Each sector is rich in resources critical to your fleets and our technology. If my people succeed, your boundaries will be pushed back significantly, and many human colonies will be at risk." Lena, usually reserved, looked up sharply. "What can we do with this information? Can we warn our command?" "That's exactly what we must do," John asserted. "But it's not just about warning them. We need a strategy, a counter-offensive based on this intel." Rix was quick to add, "And we'll need proof. Something concrete to convince the brass to take this seriously." Serena approached the projector, her finger tracing lines between stars. "I can provide intercepted communications, strategic plans, even access codes to their security networks. But getting this information safely to your leaders, that's the greater challenge." John thought for a moment, then made a decision. "We'll head to the nearest Allied command outpost. It's risky, but it's our best shot at getting your information where it needs to go." As the meeting concluded, Serena's secret now shared openly, the crew felt a newfound resolve. The stakes were clearer than ever, and their course was set. They prepared the Peregrine for the journey to the outpost, each aware of the growing threat of pursuit. In the days that followed, as the ship sped through hyperspace, John found himself often at Serena's side, planning their approach. The captain's respect for her grew, not just for the risks she had taken, but for her commitment to a cause that had once been foreign to her. Their shared dedication to a daunting mission created an unspoken bond, one that might, in any other circumstances, have the potential to transcend the boundaries of captain and crew, human and alien. But with the shadow of war looming ever closer, such thoughts had to wait. For now, survival and duty overshadowed all else. The atmosphere aboard the Peregrine was tense as the ship approached the planet Harkin, home to one of the nearest Allied command outposts. Captain John Anders and Serena had spent the last few days in intense preparation, crafting a plan that would allow them to deliver Serena's critical information safely to the human alliance. "Approaching Harkin's orbit," Rix announced from the pilot's seat, his voice steady despite the underlying nervousness. "Drop us out of hyperspace at the outer marker," John instructed, his eyes locked on the forward screens. "We need to come in quiet. Lena, keep the comms open, but monitor for any signs of tracking." "Yes, Captain," Lena responded, her fingers flying over her console, adjusting the ship's communication systems to a passive, receive-only mode. As the Peregrine slipped into orbit, the planet's vast blue oceans and sprawling landmasses came into view, a stark contrast to the looming threat of interstellar conflict. John turned to Serena, who was clad in a nondescript flight suit, her royal features obscured under a hood. "Once we land, we stick to the plan. Get in, meet with the outpost command, deliver the data, and get out without drawing attention," John briefed, his tone firm yet reassuring. Serena nodded, clutching the data chip that contained all her gathered intelligence. "I understand, Captain. I won't fail you." The Peregrine touched down on a remote pad at the outskirts of the outpost, far from the central hub's prying eyes. The ramp lowered, and John and Serena, accompanied by Rix, disembarked under the cover of darkness. They made their way to the outpost's command center, avoiding main thoroughfares and using John's knowledge of military layouts to navigate through lesser-known paths. Upon reaching the command center, They were met with skepticism by the officer on duty. "I wasn't informed of any arrivals," the officer stated, eyeing them suspiciously. John stepped forward, his demeanor authoritative. "This is a direct order from higher up. We're here to deliver critical intelligence. I suggest you get your commanding officer." The wait felt eternal, but finally a high-ranking official, Commander Stanton, arrived. His expression changed from irritation to intrigue as John introduced Serena and explained their mission. Commander Stanton led them into a secure briefing room. "If what you're saying is true, this information could change the course of the war," he remarked, accepting the data chip from Serena. As Stanton plugged the chip into the secure network, alarms suddenly blared. "We're under attack," someone shouted from the corridor. John's instincts kicked in. "We need to defend this position," he ordered, pulling his sidearm. "Rix, secure the entrance. Lena, help the commander make sure the data uploads completely." Outside, the sounds of battle grew louder as enemy forces, alerted to their presence, converged on the outpost. Serena stayed close to John, her own training evident as she took up a defensive position beside him. The fight was intense, the narrow hallways of the command center turning into choke points. John and his team fought with determination, protecting the vital data transfer. After what seemed like hours, the upload beeped, a successful transmission. "It's done," Lena called out over the sound of gunfire. "Time to pull out," John commanded, leading his team through a back exit, covering their retreat as they made their way back to the Peregrine. Breathing heavily, hearts pounding, they lifted off from Harkin, the planet receding behind them as they plotted a course back into the safety of space. Their mission was successful, but the war was far from over. However, with Serena's information now in the hands of the Human Alliance, they had just delivered a significant blow to the enemy's plans. As the Peregrine streaked away from the chaos of Harkin, Captain John Anders and his crew barely had a moment to process their narrow escape. The data from Serena had been successfully delivered, but the enemy's swift and aggressive response suggested they knew exactly what was at stake. "We need to put as much distance between us and Harkin as possible," John declared, his eyes scanning the navigation charts for a safe haven. Rix nodded, his hands steady on the controls. "Plotting a course to the Maelstrom Nebula. It'll mask our signature and buy us some time." But even the best-laid plans falter under the weight of pursuit. An enemy cruiser, faster and more armed than any they had encountered before, emerged from hyperspace directly in their path. Before John could order evasive maneuvers, a disabling beam struck the Peregrine, paralyzing its systems. "We've been hit! Systems are down! I can't get us out of here!" Rix reported, frustration evident in his voice. Lena rushed to assess the damage. "It's some kind of electromagnetic pulse. It's fried our main controls. We're sitting ducks." John clenched his fists, his mind racing for solutions. "Prepare for boarding. We'll have to fight them off." As the enemy soldiers breached the Peregrine, John and his crew took defensive positions. The ensuing battle was fierce, but outnumbered and outgunned. It was only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. One by one, they were captured and restrained, their ship commandeered. The crew was transported to a detention facility on a nearby enemy-controlled planet. The cold, barren cell they were thrown into was a stark contrast to the camaraderie and warmth of the Peregrine. John, Rix, Lena, and Serena found themselves facing an uncertain fate, their freedom stripped away. "I'm sorry, Captain. This is because of me," Serena whispered across the dimly lit cell, her face shadowed with guilt. John looked at her, his resolve unbroken despite their grim circumstances. "We knew the risks, Serena. We're in this together, no matter what. Right now, we need to focus on getting out of here." Days passed into nights, marked only by the scant meals slid through the slot in their cell door. During one such night, they overheard guards talking about an impending transfer. They were to be moved to a high-security facility for interrogation. Knowing this might be their last chance at escape, John and his crew began to plan. They observed the guards' routines, the shift changes, and the weak spots in their cell's construction. "The ceiling panel there," Rix pointed out quietly one evening. "It's loose. I think I can reach it if I stand on your shoulders, John." It was a desperate plan, but it was all they had. Over the next few hours, under the cover of darkness, they worked to loosen the panel further. Finally, Rix managed to pry it open, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft. One by one, they climbed into the shaft, their movements silent as they navigated through the twisting ducts. The facility was vast, but Rix led them confidently towards what he hoped was an exterior wall. Emerging from the shafts in a less guarded section of the facility, they encountered only minimal resistance. Using a stolen keycard from an unsuspecting guard, they accessed an armory, arming themselves for what lay ahead. As they made their way to the hangar, hoping to find a ship to hijack, they knew the hardest part of their escape was yet to come. Every corner turned could lead to capture, or worse. But with each step, they moved closer to freedom, driven by the unyielding human spirit to persevere, whatever the odds. The dimly lit corridors of the alien detention facility echoed with the distant sounds of alarms as Captain John Anders and his crew made their stealthy advance towards the hangar. Each member was alert, their senses heightened by the urgency of escape. "Keep your eyes peeled," John whispered, leading the group with a makeshift map of the facility Rix had pieced together from memory and stolen glimpses of guard datapads. "The hangar should be just around this corner." As they turned, they were momentarily exposed. A patrol, rounding the bend, spotted them. Instantly, the quiet tension erupted into chaos. Blaster fire exchanged rapidly, lighting up the corridor with deadly flashes. "Move!" John barked, pushing Serena behind a bulkhead for cover. Rix and Lena provided covering fire, forcing the patrol to take cover. "This way!" Rix shouted, spotting a service door. He hacked the panel swiftly, his fingers a blur. The door slid open, offering them a brief respite from the onslaught. They piled through, sealing the door behind them. The respite was temporary, though, as the sound of reinforcements could be heard gathering outside. "We don't have much time," Lena noted, checking her weapon for the next confrontation. They continued through a maze of service tunnels, the hangar now only a few turns away. As they approached, the sound of ships powering up filled the air, ominous yet promising. Breaking into the open hangar, they were met with a panoramic view of docked ships, guarded by more security forces who were now alerted to the presence of the escapees. "Split up, draw their fire," John commanded. They dispersed, diving behind crates and equipment, exchanging fire with precision. Serena, not just a bystander in this fight, took careful aim and provided crucial cover for John as he made a dash for a small, agile-looking craft suitable for their escape. Her training as a navigator, now coupled with newfound combat skills, made her an invaluable ally. Reaching the craft, John began to power it up, the engines whining into life under his experienced hands. "Rix, Lena, Serena, fall back to the ship." With a well-timed sprint, the crew regrouped at the ship, boarding swiftly as enemy fire pinged off the hull. "Strap in," John yelled over the roar of the engines. Rix took the co-pilot's seat, initiating the launch sequence, while Lena and Serena secured themselves, bracing for a rough takeoff. The ship lurched forward, its engines screaming as John piloted them out of the hangar, maneuvering through a hail of enemy fire. Every evasion was a narrow escape from destruction. Once clear of the facility's immediate airspace, John didn't hesitate, pushing the ship to its limits as they soared into the planet's stratosphere. "Coordinates set for the nearest neutral zone," Rix reported, his voice tense but steady. As they entered hyperspace, the adrenaline of the escape began to ebb, replaced by the heavy realization of their narrow escape and the daunting road ahead. John met Serena's gaze, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had solidified under fire. "Thanks to you, we're not just running, we've got a fighting chance." Serena nodded, her expression a mix of exhaustion and determination. "We're far from safe, but together, we have strength." As the stars stretched into lines of light around them, the crew of the Peregrine faced the uncertain future, not as captives nor disparate individuals, but as a united front ready to challenge the tides of war. The hyperspace journey back to human-controlled space gave Captain John Anders and his crew much-needed time to rest and plan their next steps. The Peregrine's common area was quiet, the usual hum of the ship a comforting background to their tired reflections. John sat at the head of the table, his crew arrayed around him. Rix was busy checking the ship's systems, ensuring they were no longer being tracked. Lena treated minor injuries, her medical kit spread out in front of her. Serena, looking less like a fugitive and more a vital part of the crew, studied the star maps, plotting their course. "We've made it this far," John began, breaking the silence. "Thanks to each of you. We've delivered critical intelligence, escaped a high-security enemy facility, and lived to tell the tale. But our mission isn't over." He looked at each of his crew members, his gaze lingering on Serena. "We have a chance to end this war. The information Serena provided has given the Alliance a strategic advantage, but it will take more than just data to secure peace." Serena nodded in agreement. "My people are misled by a corrupt leadership that fears losing power. If we can expose their deceit, We might sway public opinion and halt the aggression. Rix chimed in, his voice steady. We've been on the defensive for too long. It's time to take the initiative, to strike where it'll hurt them most. Lena added, and we need to ensure we're not just fighting for the sake of fighting. We need a plan that leads to peace, not just another ceasefire. John was proud of his crew's growth and resolve. Exactly. Our next move is to rendezvous with the Alliance fleet. We'll share everything, our escape, the battles, and our plans. Together, we'll form a strategy not just to push back, but to end this war, to negotiate a lasting peace. The crew nodded, understanding the weight of their task. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but they were no longer just survivors. They were ambassadors of hope. As the Peregrine dropped out of hyperspace near the rendezvous point, a fleet of Alliance ships greeted them, their hulls glinting in the starlight. John communicated their credentials and was soon directing the Peregrine to dock with the flagship. Once aboard, they were ushered into a briefing room filled with military leaders. John and Serena presented their report, the evidence laid bare. The room was tense, the stakes clear. After hours of discussion, the leaders agreed on a new course of action, one that incorporated Serena's insights and aimed at diplomatic resolutions as well as military preparations. Back aboard the Peregrine, as they prepared to join the main fleet operations, John and Serena found a moment to themselves, looking out at the vastness of space. You've changed this crew, Serena. You've changed me, John confessed, his voice soft. No matter how this ends, I want you to know that... Serena smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. And you have shown me that there is more to humans than I ever knew. Whatever happens next, I am grateful to stand with you. As they watched the stars, the future uncertain but their resolve unshaken, the Peregrine and her crew were ready. Ready to fight, to negotiate, to do whatever it took to ensure that this mission was not just another battle, but a step towards lasting peace. Thus, as they sailed into the gathering forces of the human fleet, the Peregrine was no longer just a ship in the vast army of space. It was a symbol of change, of the possibility that even in the darkest of times, understanding and unity could lead to a new dawn for all.